me die. Let me die.
3 simple words. Let me die. It's probably the most profound words in cinematic history. Words that raise the bar of political consciousness like no other motion picture of its time.
Hello, my name's Steve Haberman, and if you're listening to this, you probably know that I've done a lot of audio commentaries, and this is another one. I'm sitting here with Tony Sasso, the very distinguished author of Ahead of Its Time, The Making of the Brain That Wouldn't Die. Tony has some thoughts about the making of this film, about what the movie means, and I'm more than curious to hear what he has to say about it because I'm at a loss.
Thank you, Steve. And we're looking at the movie credits.
And they are interesting credits, to
Yes,
be sure. This
yes.
music, I'm pretty sure, is library music. It's credited. It's called The Web, and it has composers credited in the credits. But I'm pretty sure all the music in this were library cues, because the budget on this movie was only $64,000, and I don't think they could have afforded this orchestra any other way.
Okay, we are done with the credits and thrust immediately into the whirlwind world of modern medicine.
That's right.
These scenes in the operating room, Steve, serve to give us a glimpse into the turbulent relationship between Dr. Bill Cortner and his father. It also serves to give us clues into Bill's upbringing.
How so?
Well, the fact that we hear nothing in the script about Bill's mother indicates that she may have abandoned her son at an early age, leaving her resentful husband to raise Bill by himself.
You got all that from this, huh?
Yes, indeed.
Good work.
Bill is played by Herb Evers, who had already been an accomplished television star at the time when director Joseph Green chose him for this pivotal role.
Yes, Herb Evers, otherwise known as Jason Evers, he was born January 2nd, 1922 in New York City. He quit high school to join the United States Army, and he was very inspired by John Wayne, of all people, who he actually worked with later in The Green Beret, a picture that John Wayne starred, produced, and directed. But John Wayne inspired Jason Evers to become an actor, so he went to Broadway, and he distinguished himself to the point where he went to Hollywood and got a break in the 1960 NBC Western television series Wrangler. Now, this movie that we're watching now, even though it was released in 1962 by American International Pictures, was actually made in 1959. So Evers starred in this picture before he got the Wrangler. He appeared in NBC's The Ford Show, starring Tennessee Ernie Ford. In '61, he was cast as George Tess in the episode Ms. Purdy of the ABC Western series The Rebel, starring the late tragic Nick Adams. And then Evers made 3 guest appearances on Perry Mason in different roles. He was the murder victim, Stuart Benton, in the 1961 episode The Case of the Difficult Detour. He was the defendant, Roy Gallen, in the 1964 episode The Case of the Latent Lover. And then in The Case of the Posthumous Painter, which was also in 1961, he played the defendant's brother. In '63 and '64, Evers starred as Professor Howe in the 26 episode ABC drama series Channing, based on the life of people on college campus, which co-starred the great character actor Henry Jones. And of course, his most enduring role is in this movie. Not because the movie's good, but because people still watch it. And Tony's going to explain to us why people still watch this.
Well, as we can see right now in the operating room, Bill is bringing his father's patient back from the dead.
As one does.
As one does. And we see that his father may finally believe that his son's unconventional methods may have some value.
Well, let me go on with Evers. In 1966, Evers appeared on The Insider, That was On the Road West, starring Barry Sullivan as the patriarch of a family of pioneers relocating in Kansas. From 67 to 69, he appeared as James Sonnet, the missing son that Walter Brennan's looking for in The Guns of Will Sonnet. If you'll remember from that series, Walter Brennan played Will Sonnet, and he was always looking for him.
And what a great show that was.
Yes, it was. I actually like that show. I remember it.
I do too.
Dak Rambo co-starred as Evers' son and Brennan's grandson, Jeff Sonnet. In 1968, Evers co-starred in a Star Trek episode called Wink of an Eye, about a race of aliens who exist in a hyper-accelerated time frame and take over the Starship Enterprise. And then he appeared in The Green Beret, as I said before, with John Wayne, his idol. He appeared in a movie called PJ and A Man Called Gannon, and also in science fiction movies like The Illustrated Man with Rod Steiger and Claire Bloom, and Escape from the Planet of the Apes with Roddy McDowall. And then he worked some more in films and television. He was in The Rockford Files, and he guest starred with Bruce Lee in The Green Hornet show, and his roles sort of diminished a little bit. Then he appeared as a race car driver of Doris Martin, the part played by Doris Day in The Doris Day Show in 1970. Then later on, he was in a movie called A Piece of the Action in 1977, in Claws in 1977, in Barracuda in 78, and his final appearance was very appropriately, considering that he's most remembered for this movie, in Basket Case 2 in 1990. And then he returned to New York. Evers died of a heart attack in L.A. on March 13th, 2005.
Okay, well, as we can see, they're wheeling the doctor's patients out. The elder Dr. Cortner tells Bill that an operating room is no place to experiment.
Or operate, really.
Or operate.
If you think about it.
And this actually serves to emphasize the elder doctor's bitterness and jealousy over her son's genius and success.
By the way, this startlingly persuasive set was built in the basement of the New York Henry Hudson Hotel. It was actually a 75 by 75 foot studio that was constructed down there. The exteriors, which you will see later, also very convincing, were shot in and around Tarrytown, New York.
Well, Bill's desperation here to win the acceptance of his father fails to connect. After years of trying, Bill can only calm his rage by insulting his old man about his failure as both a doctor and a father.
And an actor.
Is it a crime for science to jump ahead?
Well, it can be.
Or the even more penetrating line, "You've lost your urge to experiment, Dad, to explore."
Right. Now, showing how seriously they took this movie, the original title, when they were sort of talking about making a horror film, was I Was a Teenage Brain Surgeon. That's true. That's not a joke. That's really what they were going to call it. Producer Rex Carlton and director Joseph Green figured out the storyline. They were going to call it I Was a Teenage Brain Surgeon because, I was a teenage werewolf and I Was a Teenage Frankenstein had both been big surprise hits for AIP. And then they wisely decided to call it something else. Actually, before they called it The Brain That Wouldn't Die, they called it The Black Room. Or The Black Door.
The Black Door.
The Black Door, that's right. This, by the way, is Virginia Leith.
Ah, yes.
And she's a pivotal character in this. She was born October 15th, 1932 in Cleveland, Ohio. She starred in a few films. Her most productive period was in the 1950s when she signed a contract with 20th Century Fox in '54. And she had leading roles in On the Threshold of Space, Toward the Unknown, Violent Saturday, and with Robert Wagner and Joanne Woodward in A Kiss Before Dying, which is actually a pretty good movie.
Well, here, she's appearing as Jan Compton, I guess also known as Jan in the Pan.
Yes.
Her access to the operating room of this major urban hospital is probably a good example of women overcoming the repressions of the 1960s. Of course, also helps that she's dressed like a nurse.
Right. And also, this movie was in 1959, so she was really ahead of her time.
Ahead of her time. Yes.
Ahead of her time.
And though they appear like the perfect couple, all is not right in Jan and Bill's world. As we see from these scenes, Jan's in a hurry to marry Bill, but Bill's a bit reluctant. Later on, we will find out just why.
Right. You don't think Jan is pregnant, do you?
I don't think so.
No.
She looks like she's got a little frost job on her hair, though.
I like her hair. I
Yeah,
think her hair looks very hot in this. You know, I mean, she could go out now with hair like that. Now, Virginia Leith left show business after her marriage to actor Donald Herron ended in divorce, and then she renewed her career in the 1970s and appeared in a few films then, like and TV shows like Starsky and Hutch, Barnaby Jones, Beretta. And then she left acting again in the early 80s. She couldn't make up her mind. Obviously, her most famous role is this one, in The Brain That Wouldn't Die. And again, I'm hoping that Tony will convince me.
And
why.
and you know, this scene that introduces our actress, unfortunately, is the last scene for extraordinary veteran actor Bruce Brighton in the role of Bill's father. Brighton's only other credit was in a 1959 episode of The Phil Silver Show. But what an amazing performance that was.
Yes, they're still talking about that performance on the Phil Silver Show.
Okay, so we have learned that, actually Bill's father has also learned that Bill has, in his eagerness, developed a special compound that will revolutionize transplant surgery. And now we've just seen the nurse, a very underplayed performance, who comes in to tell Dr. Bill that he is needed at the laboratory, aka the vacation house.
Right.
And so this leads us to On the Road.
Now I have a technical question. Why are they looping Virginia Leith with a different actress here?
Well, I understand that Virginia Leith hated this film so much that she refused to come in and dub her own lines.
Wow.
So they got the nurse to come in and do that service.
She hated the movie so much, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Little did she know it would make her immortal.
Okay, so now Bill has persuaded Jan to crawl into his death trap of a car and head into the hills.
I don't know. That car looks pretty sturdy to me.
Okay.
Looks like you could hit that with just about anything and it would stay just exactly the way it was. This is an incredibly threadbare, low-budget car accident that shows no car and no accident.
Well, yeah, and it turns out that Bill is not such a good driver as he is a doctor.
He's not that great of a doctor either.
Well, you know, I think this was definitely inspired by James Dean's high-speed car crash in 1955.
Yeah, because that was the only car crash in the 50s, right?
Right.
That occurred.
And like James Dean, the crash is going to raise Bill and Jan to cult status, forever to remembered as a talented but misunderstood rebels without a cause.
Yes. And without a body.
There he goes.
There he goes. So what happened was, when they started making this movie, which they were calling it I Was a Teenage Brain Surgeon.
Until they found out that this actor is no longer a teenager.
Right. Or much of a brain surgeon. Dr. Carlton raised $62,000 and shot this thing in 13 days, which is pretty good. I don't mind this.
Okay.
I mind his performance, but if you don't have a car and you don't have an accident and you don't have money for anything, this is not a bad way to show what's going on.
No, and I also think this is kind of fortuitous because it foretells the gruesome decapitation of Jane Mansfield, which will only occur a few years later.
So they knew that was going to happen.
They did. They definitely
that's
knew
why
it's not.
they right. That was very forward thinking of them. So we get the idea. This would be great if he had to run across a high school field where they're playing football. That would have made this movie much, much better, but unfortunately they didn't have the budget for a field or a football team.
So we see that Bill has survived the crash and staggers back to the fiery wreckage, wraps Jan's head in a blanket, and proceeds to the vacation house to begin the holiday that like they had planned.
Now, actually, unbelievably, when they finished shooting this movie in 13 days and cut it and scored it, they couldn't get anybody to distribute it.
Hard to believe.
It's very hard to believe. I mean, obviously people didn't have the vision, but as they often did, Sam Arkoff and James H. Nicholson saw a bargain and snatched it up 3 years later in 1962.
It looks like he's going for a touchdown.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It would be great if he had to run through a field with football players. Anyway, AIP cut some stuff out of it because they knew their audience, were mostly teenagers in drive-ins. So there's a couple of very gory scenes, one where a man has his arm ripped off and another where a monster bites a piece of flesh off of the neck of our doctor here, and AIP cut those out. But other than that, they kept it pretty well intact.
Well, it's at this point, Steve, that I think the movie begins to depend on a little-known Mary Shelley novel called Frankenstein, written in 1918.
I read that one.
Have you heard of it?
Yes, they made me read that in high school.
Okay, well, it seems that Bill is also a scientist obsessed with creating life, has a remote laboratory in the hills, and a deformed assistant who may be more than meets the eye.
There's no deformed assistant in the novel.
Okay.
Just the movies.
Okay, well. But like Frankenstein, like Dr. Frankenstein, you're going to find out that the real monster turns out to be the creator and not the creation.
Boy, is that true. Look at the deformity.
All right, here. Now we meet Kurt.
It's amazing how they made this interior match the exterior.
So now we got
house.
two heads, one to the left and one to the right.
Yeah, is that ironic?
It is. I'm sure. There we go with the closet.
Or is it foreshadowing? Or is there a difference?
Okay, so Kurt is played by Leslie Daniels, who under the name of Anthony LaPena also appeared as JJ in an early Hammer horror film called Room to Let.
I don't believe that.
I know. I didn't think you would.
He was in a British movie in the 50s. He's not a British. He's an American actor, apparently, from his accent.
But nevertheless, Kurt is a complex character. He's completely devoted to Dr. Bill for many reasons. And I hate to say this, but mainly because of his love for the handsome doctor.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I do. And also because Bill has promised to fix Kurt's disfigured hand, which we have yet to see, and which is the result of one of Bill's transplant surgeries gone hideously wrong. But now through all of this, you're going to find out that Kurt has come head to head,
If you'll pardon the expression.
yes, with a new dilemma in his relationship with Bill, this woman Jan. And as you've heard earlier, Kurt has wasted no time reminding Bill, aren't you first going to have a look in the closet?
Oh, this movie has hidden meaning that you're starting to convince me.
Yeah, I thought I would.
Yes.
So although the creature in the closet, which we have yet to see, can be considered just another misfire of Bill's failed limb transplants,
For the very literal minded.
it also serves as a subtext for a gay man not admitting his sexual orientation.
Well, my goodness, I'm amazed this movie was not banned. Who would have thought?
Well, this, of course, is not new. But it is a bold step for films of this era, right?
Yeah, you couldn't do that.
I mean, it's much like Senator Anderson in Otto Preminger's Advise and Consent that same year.
Well, the year this was released.
The
Not
year
the
it
year
was-
it was made.
So-
This was even ahead of Otto Preminger.
Ahead. Okay, well, much like that film, Bill has chosen not to come out of the closet and disclose his homosexuality, fearing that it could have a negative impact on his marriage to Jan.
Now, I have to say that this is actually pretty creepy. I think they picked the right woman's head for this.
It is very.
I mean, if you don't take it literally, beyond the threadbare production and the implausibility, there's something iconically creepy about this.
Well, what's creepy is who did her makeup.
Yeah, that's right. It's
Was
like,
it Jan or was it Dr. Bill or Kurt?
Well, it's like Ernest Thesiger said when they were making Bride of Frankenstein. He saw her makeup for the first time, the Jack Pierce makeup. He said, "Are we supposed to be mad doctors or hairdressers?"
And I also need to point out the fact that, Dr. Bill, still in his stage of denial, nevertheless revives Jan's head and sticks into a pan.
Yes.
More precisely, a lasagna pan.
And there must be some hidden meaning there.
Well, the difference is important because it not only puts the headstrong Jan in her rightful place, the kitchen,
Yes.
but because for the rest of the movie, it traps her within the confines of a pan. A pan for which there is no escape.
Yes, it's a pan from hell. Freud wrote an entire book called The Uncanny, which is about he sort of defined uncanny, which is a mixture of the familiar and the unfamiliar, that when you see them juxtaposed gives you an eerie feeling. And something that's strangely familiar, but at the same time mysterious. And of course, Freud found all kinds of, sexual meaning in that. And he said one of the most uncanny things is our dismembered body parts, hands, heads. They give us that feeling. And obviously he linked it to castration anxiety. Jan here is very castrated. All she has left is her head.
Well, yes, and I guess this would not be considered uncanny, maybe almost unpenny.
Unpanny, yes, or unpunny. It reminds me also of that great line in The Tenant, the Roman Polanski movie. Polanski says, "If you cut off my arm, you say, me and my arm. If you cut off my leg, you say, me and my leg. But if you cut off my head, is it me and my head or me and my body?"
Very good.
I didn't come up with that.
All right. So there we see Kurt's arm, a result of Dr. Bill's surgery's gone wrong.
Well, we don't know how it started. That may be an improvement, for all we know, right? Let's not judge the doctor so quickly.
That's true. That's true. Because he is a brilliant doctor.
Obviously.
Right.
This is such a good print that I can tell that that's a fake head in the...
But look at the way he's going to embrace Kurt now.
You might be right about this homosexual subtext.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm starting to see your point here.
Oh, there we go.
Look in the closet.
Let's look in the closet.
You're right. I'm not looking in that closet.
Well, here we have the sum total of Dr. Bill's sexual frustration. This is a tense moment.
It is. Startlingly convincing door.
Yes, and the way he embraces the door.
Tony, I mock you, I make fun of you, I call you an idiot, but you may be a genius.
Here we go. Sounds like he's gargling. Keep it locked. In reference to the closet and the secret it contains, Bill can only say, keep it locked.
Yes, and rightfully so.
Okay, so what we hadn't heard was Bill's father telling Bill that that the hospital knows that Bill is the culprit who's been stealing limbs from the amputee operation. And soon there's going to be hell to pay. Bill shrugs it off with the superb metaphor There's more to surgery than just being a carpenter to patch up walls or a plumber to drain pipes.
I would think there is more to surgery than that. Yes, that's an accurate statement.
Yes. So Bill is off. He's nailed the whole thing on the head, so to speak, when he tells Kurt, what I've done is done and what I've done is right. I've succeeded with transplants before, and I can make Jan complete again. And here he goes.
Oh, now he's going to go to... This is an amazingly sleazy middle section. It kind of reminds me of a masterpiece, actually, that was made the same year, a French movie called Les Yeux Sans Visage by Georges Franju. And it was based on a script that was worked on by the great French writing team of Beaulieu and Narcejac. And it's a movie about a scientist, a surgeon, a plastic surgeon, who gets in a car accident, disfigures his beautiful daughter, and then spends the rest of the movie kidnapping beautiful women and flaying their faces off and attempting to graft their faces onto the disfigured daughter. And of course, they never take. But it has this subplot of going out and finding women and kidnapping them and bringing them back. And obviously, this movie was not inspired by Les Yeux Sans Visage because it was made exactly the same year. So
Yeah, I don't know about that. That film was called, the American title was Eyes Without a Face.
Eyes Without... Well, no, actually, when it was released here, it was called The Horror Chamber of Dr. Faustus.
Okay, but we remember as Eyes Without a Face.
Right.
So this could actually be considered Face Without a Body.
That's right, it could.
Okay.
But nobody would.
Nobody would. So Bill's left the laboratory, and he's trolling strip bars and whorehouses.
As one does.
As one does. Not only to find a suitable body on which to attach Jan's head, but I also feel this is a half-hearted attempt for him to retain the pitiful remains of his manhood.
Ah.
There's some lovely women here.
But not in the scene.
They're all behind the camera.
That's right.
Well, although I am an avid admirer of writer-director Joseph Green,
Who isn't?
and writer-producer Rex Carlton, I have to confess I'm feeling a little bit indifferent about the second act of this film.
Really?
Yeah, frankly, I think some viewers might find these scenes slightly...
Misogynistic?
Yeah, no, maybe so. But I don't believe for a second that the makers of this movie were prejudiced against women.
No, they just didn't like them.
Or felt like they were superior to the weaker sex?
The weaker sex.
The weaker
yes.
sex.
I don't know how weak the sex is. I mean, this woman
It's
could
pretty
definitely
strong
take
to
you.
me, right? Yeah. I guess what we need to remember is that the lives of women were difficult during these times. Discriminated upon, denied basic rights. Women desperately wanted to earn wages like their male counterparts. And that's any way they could.
Their place was in the kitchen. Or in the lasagna pan. By the way,
speaking of lasagna pans, we're back here.
Exactly. This reminds me, there was another scene that AIP didn't have to cut because they couldn't pull it off, but it was in the script. It was a scene where a rat, this is true, a rat comes into the laboratory and starts drinking the blood from...
the lasagna pan?
No, from the tube that's pumping blood. And then the rat goes over to Jan's head. And is she's trying to chase it away, and then Kurt comes into the lab, and the rat runs off. But on their budget and their time schedule, they couldn't deal with the rat. He wouldn't cooperate. He wanted more money. I don't know.
What made you think I'd come?
You know a good thing when you
Yeah, there was plenty to see.
I love that. I love that wallpaper.
Yes, this was all done in the basement of the Henry Hudson Hotel in New York.
Was interesting.
Who would have thought?
You know,
Okay,
of course, women's liberation, the women's liberation movement of the 1960s would change all of this type of stuff. But in the meantime, these women are forced to become sex objects and prisoners of male fantasies. But in a good way.
but in a good way, yes, of course. We mean that in the most positive sort
Of course.
I'm the leading lady around here. I can sit with the squares out front, or I can relax back here with my friends.
I'll bet you don't have an enemy in the world.
Hmm.
That's obviously meant ironically because
Okay.
her friend comes in.
This is
and they
probably
get in a
where
fight.
we would see the rat. Maybe.
Yeah, but we're not going to because they couldn't pull it off.
Okay, there we go.
I know these scenes actually, as incompetent as this movie is, these scenes and the scenes that foreshadow the monster in the closet, which you see as a metaphor for something else, I find actually to be pretty disturbing.
When you get done,
I find these scenes to be pretty disturbing.
Yeah, I agree, but in a different way. You know, the music and this atmosphere kind of reminds me of Orson Welles' movie of the previous year, Touch of Evil, which was equally sleazy. But it was sleazy in a sort of artistic, big-budget way. I mean, the music was not library music. It was composed by Henry Mancini, and, you know, it was directed. The movie was directed by Orson Welles, but it had this same kind of over-the-top nasty factor.
Well, so far already, we've already referenced Orson Welles, Otto Preminger,
Yes,
and John Wayne movies.
that's right. This movie's actually got quite a pedigree in retrospect.
to be more important that could be taken care of right now.
But I've got to see about helping somebody. Somebody who needs my help very badly.
Hmm.
Cut out of me now, baby. Now when you got me feeling so good. I'm so warm all over.
She has a point.
I'm good for you. I know I'm good for what
You know, when you think about it,
you want.
why does he just forget about Jan?
Just what I'm looking for.
Well, that's true.
I mean, this girl, she's ready to go. She's just as good.
I mean, she's way ahead of Jan.
Oh, wait a minute. Here's a problem.
You got your nerve. Oh, look,
Hmm.
doggy. Why'd you haul your beat up body back to the bar with the rest of the flies? If you
I would love to know how they cast these two parts.
On the couch.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, but
And she's trying to move in on this other girl's territory here.
they obviously they don't know the subtext of the
No.
movie is that he's gay.
but but they seem to think that Dr. Bill is such a catch here.
Right.
Get out of here. Choose company.
This is a very strange act, too.
Tell me to blow.
It's a bit of a non sequitur.
This here's my dressing room too. Remember?
They never thought of doing this in Les Yeux Sans Visage. That was obviously a missed opportunity by Franjou, because you can see, you know, how this strengthens the movie.
So obviously Dr. Bill's feeling very uncomfortable here between these two women.
Why?
And well, one is stripping down
Uh,
and the other one is coming on to him.
Yeah. Come on back later. I'll remember you.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
See?
you know, that woman kind of walks like John Wayne.
You lousy tramp. Once in a blue moon, I lightened to a guy with class.
So this is the kettle calling the pot black, right? Or how does
Yes.
that go?
Is that a racist subtext in the movie?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Says who?
Says me. What's a guy like that want with leftovers for?
Leftovers?
Now, did you notice the two cats in the background of her close-up when she got slapped? They weren't on the wall behind her, so that was violating continuity. But I think for an artistic reason, I think it was worthy of, you know, some of Jacques Tourneur's cat images in the Cat People, don't you?
There they are again. Yeah.
See, I mean, they really wanted us to see
Well,
those.
that signifies the cat fight that we were just seeing.
I see.
And now we're back in the lab.
Yes, we are. You know, they American International chose to release this with an even worse movie, if you can imagine. called Invasion of the Star Creatures, which was actually made in 1962. It was a science fiction comedy. It was actually a kind of a remake of Invasion of the Saucermen.
Yeah, that cult classic with Frank Gorshin.
Frank Gorshin is in that one, yeah. There was a theater owner in Colorado who showed this double feature once and once only, and then shipped it right back to AIP and said it was a lot of baloney. And who can blame him?
What is a star creature, anyway?
It's a I don't know.
Anyway, so here we're back in the lab, and for someone who has been scorched and decapitated, Jan is surprisingly articulate.
Yeah, she is.
And clear-headed.
Yeah, and she has no lungs either.
And she's and she's able to hold intelligent and contemptuous conversations with Kurt.
Well, how could you have a conversation with Kurt without being contemptuous? Look at him.
Yeah.
All he does is grab his lips like an alcoholic.
But also, more importantly now, you find out that she's also has formed a psychic bond with the beast in the closet.
Yes. Now, this reminds me of a much better movie that came decades later called Reanimator by Stuart Gordon, which was based on a little series of short stories by H.P. Lovecraft called Herbert West Reanimator. And in Stuart Gordon's version, he has a head, Dr. Hill's head, in a pan, which had to be inspired by this.
But not a lasagna pan.
Not a lasagna. Well, it could have been. Who knows? And Dr. Hill also has telepathic powers and communicates with the corpses that Dr. West has brought back to life.
He also communicates with his own body.
That's right. He can control his own body. If only Jan had that power. It would save the doctor a lot of legwork.
But Jan right now is just kind of like experimenting with her telepathy, with using talking to the thing in the closet and giving it small commands like knocking on the door and
not knocking on the door.
Not knocking on the door and come out and redo my mascara.
Right. One thing that this movie, especially the second half of it, has going for it is the unities, as Aristotle would say. You know, it has a unity of place, obviously. It all takes place sort of around here. And a unity of time. Isn't the story basically all in one night?
Well, Dr. Bill has told Kurt that he has 48 to 50 hours to find a body.
So and that was a good idea too. There's a clock ticking on Jan. He only has that amount of time to find a likely body for her.
But it's not like a biological clock.
Well,
maybe
I that is a subtext. Man, that's your job. I can't
didn't
find
even
these
think
things.
about
I'm not
that.
Smart enough.
I got to start a new chapter for the book now.
That's right. This is such a great production design on a low budget. You know, it's obviously lighting stands and C-stands and whatever they could find, but it comes together very, very well, I think. I mean, it's so memorable. I've seen masks, display masks that are tributes to that look, and models, garage kit models.
Well, it's definitely a cultural icon.
Yeah, it is. It's a cultural icon. And these actors, who obviously didn't have stellar careers, but they are remembered for being in this movie. So the movie has some kind of haunting quality, and I'm not being ironic here. I'm being quite honest. It has some kind of haunting quality to it that despite its shortcomings in terms of production and acting and so on, shines through. This probably would have been better as a silent movie.
I think you may be coming over to my side, Steve.
I think, yeah. Well, at least about the movie.
Okay, so there she is. And I think at this point it becomes abundantly clear that all Jan wants to do is die.
I feel the same way.
Bill, however, for his own personal interest, will not let her.
And what is that interest?
Well, I guess it's scientific ambition.
Because if he's a closeted gay guy in 1959, it would seem to be convenient for her to
die.
Yes.
Well, yes, it's
pass away.
It's no longer a matter of love for Jan, but a matter of scientific ambition.
Right. Well, you mean for the doctor, not for Jan?
For the doctor.
Yes.
And in that respect, the movie's title, The Brain That Wouldn't Die, is kind of misleading.
What should it be?
It would, I guess, the brain that could not die, or couldn't die, or the brain that wants to die but can't.
Yes, there's a ring to that. The brain that wants to die, wanted to die, but cannot.
I don't think that would fit on the marquee,
No.
so maybe not.
Then they couldn't have a second feature,
Which, of course, brings us to another political issue.
which is
Of course, euthanasia, or the right to die with dignity.
right.
You know, why society as a whole has mixed reactions to interfering with God's plan, who can argue with a person's decision to live or die?
That's a good point.
Like Jan, nobody wants to end up in a lasagna pan,
No.
wasting away to something that's unrecognizable.
Truer words were never spoken. You know, this movie has, proving that it has some kind of haunting quality, has become a bit of a cult film. First of all, Mystery Science Theater 3000 did a version of it. And it was the first movie that was watched by Mike Nelson in that. That was episode...
In that series?
In that series. It was episode 513. He replaced, of course, Joel Robinson on the series. And that is when Jan in the Pan became the nickname for this character. Also, and this is truly the sign of a cultural icon, the movie has been made into not one, but two off-Broadway musicals. There was, yes, true. There was one in October 2009 called The Brain That Wouldn't Die, a New Musical, which was produced at the Overtime Theater in San Antonio, Texas. One wonders how the Texans took this. And it was a collaboration between composer Philip Luna and writer-lyricist Joe Gillespie. And then there was yet another one, which was called The Brain That Wouldn't Die in 3D. And that was by T. Sivak and E. Gelman. And that premiered in the New York Musical Theater Festival in October 2011.
So the musical was in 3D?
Yes, it was in 3D because it was on stage in real time. I think Stephen Sondheim should look at this, actually.
So this is much like Roger Corman's Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes, except that movie was good.
And that play was good.
Yeah, and the play was very good, and the remake was good. The movie of the musical was very good.
But it just goes to show you this film has a definite amount of longevity.
Yeah, there's something about it, you know, and I kind of felt it when I watched it this time. I really did.
Yeah, I felt something as well.
Yeah, because quite honestly, I was watching it to hate. And slowly but surely, especially in this second half, mostly because of just this image of her, it became something strange and special. It kind of transcends its meager beginnings and becomes, I don't know. I really don't know. I link it, as I said before, to Freud's theories on the uncanny. And I think also there's a lot of conversation. Most of the dialogue in this is incredibly pretentious and on the nose, but it's very single-minded. And they talk about the essence of horror, that, you know, like all things, horror has a quantity, and she's the ultimate. And they talk a lot about the thing in the closet, which, as you see as a metaphor for something else. But also, the thing in the closet could be seen as the unknown. It could be seen as our own sort of sins and evil building up and coming back to take retribution in our lives, which is indeed what happens at the end of this movie.
And these conversations between Jan, as I like to call her, Jan Le Pen,
Right.
and Kurt, I mean, they are basically comparing notes on Dr. Bill and talking about their own relationships with him.
But they also, as I said, talk about more philosophical subjects, mostly dealing with horror, with the unknown, with fear, with our, finding out too much.
It's a very heady subject.
It is a very heady subject indeed.
And speaking of heady subjects, there has been a host of movies about brains.
That's true. And you know what's interesting about it? Some of the movies are better than this one, but this is the image right here that we're looking at that you think about when you think about movies about disembodied heads or brains. You know, the writer Kurt Siodmak, who was the brother of Robert Siodmak, the great director. Kurt Siodmak was a writer, and he was very interested in brain movies. He wrote a novel called Donovan's Brain, which has been made into a couple of movies. He also worked on some of the Universal horror movies like The Ghost of Frankenstein, which is about transplanting a brain into the head of the monster. It turns out to be Igor's brain, which was a bad choice, but still. So there's a kind of a subgenre about heads and brains being transplanted. What other movies? Let's see. Donovan's Brain was made into the movie Donovan's Brain, and also
a British film called The Brain.
The Brain, and then there was one with Eric von Stroheim called The Lady and the Monster.
Yes.
That was a version of that, sort of, a very gothic version of it. And what other brain movies?
Well, there's, as you mentioned, The Head.
Oh yeah, The Head. That's a Russian movie, which I have not seen.
And then a very popular film for John Agar fans, The Brain from Planet Iris.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, which reminds one of Fiend Without a Face, Floating Brains.
A floating brain, which I think the heroine or the hero beats with a bat to destroy at the end.
As one does. Yeah, you have to do that.
Yeah.
It gets very bloody.
Well, there's two brains in that film. There's a good brain and there's a bad brain.
Yeah, very symbolic.
Very symbolic. Brains are also featured in Fiend Without a Face.
I just said that.
Oh, okay. And for some reason, they saved Hitler's brain.
Oh, yeah, they saved Hitler's brain. For what? What are we going to do with that?
And then, of course, in the 80s, I guess, there was that great Steve Martin comedy, The Man with Two Heads.
Yes, The Man with Two Heads, directed by my friend Carl Reiner.
And co-starring Kathleen Turner.
Yes. A good parody of a lot of stuff.
and the brain actually was voiced by Sissy Spacek.
Right.
I love that movie.
I do too.
I wish we were watching that now.
No.
No. Okay.
This is fine. Again,
the web.
Yeah, the web. That's right. No, I don't know if this is the web. I think the web was what was used under the credits, but it's all library music.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think there was a 45 released called The Web.
That
was
right?
from this movie.
No. They actually paid to have music.
It's going to be your Christmas present, so you better believe it.
You shouldn't have told me. It's only October. Okay. So, again, here we are in Tarrytown, New York. And as in Les Yeux Sans Visage, our mad scientist is trolling for
bodies, yeah.
Yes, likely substitutes for.
But I think he knows this woman.
Yeah, he does. He knows her, and her friend, unfortunately.
Or this woman.
Yeah, one of these. He actually has a conversation, and he's just about to take her home, and her friend shows up. That's happened so many times in my life.
He really needs to concentrate more on driving. This is why he got into the accident in the first place.
Why the story started in the first place. It'd be terrible if he got in another accident and he had her head, and then it'd be two brains that couldn't die.
So whose car is this now? I thought he wrecked his car.
That's a good point. I think they only rented one car for this movie.
That's a goof. And I think there's a number of goofs in these films, right?
Well, yeah. When you're making a low-budget movie with only 13 days and no talent, there's the accidents will happen. As a matter of fact, during the accident, for example, we hear the brake screeching before we see his foot hitting the brake pedal. That's a goof.
That is a goof.
Also, if you'll notice, I noticed this girl was wearing gloves. Many women wore gloves in the 50s. Before the brunette stripper is slapped in that famous close-up with the two cats in the background, she's seen taking off her white gloves, and yet when she's slapped, she puts her hand to her face, and the white gloves are back on. continuity goof. Could happen to anybody.
Yeah, and there's a lot of goofs in the operating room in the beginning. I noticed that it's kind of strange that they're doing like brain operations and heart operations, but their gowns are still white.
Yes.
There's no blood on them,
Right.
and I mean they come out of this room spotless. And if you notice the scene where they open his brain, it's just there. There's no sawing. There's nothing. They just expose his brain. And I think, as you pointed out before to me, is that scene of the open brain is lifted from another film called The Black Sleep.
Yes. In The Black Sleep, though, that was directed by Reginald Leborg, who was, he had sort of some intelligence. And he did some research and found out that brains actually seep. And so the brain in The Black Sleep was a sponge. And so when, Basil Rathbone cuts it open and touches it, fluid seeps out. But the brain in this movie was notoriously dry.
Well, yeah, and there was no skull under the skin.
Right, that's right. Just skin and brain. You mean that's not the way it is? Let me go back to the stripper scene.
Okay.
In the back room, when the stripper's talking to the blonde stripper, there's a mirror in the background with 5 photographs attached to the left side. But when the stripper enters the room and begins to fight with the blonde stripper, there's now 9 photographs attached to the mirror, 5 on the left and 4 more in the center. It seems like something that they could have easily fixed.
And I also noticed when the blonde stripper slaps the brunette stripper, the close-up with the slap shows an extremely hairy man's hand.
Yes, maybe it was Eddie Carmel, the Jewish giant.
Which we will get to later.
Yes, which we will get to later. He just happened to be there that day. When the doctor's sitting visiting the blonde stripper, to his back is a bare wall with 2 hanging cats. And to the left is a wall with a flowered wallpaper and a huge mirror. When the brunette stripper comes in, she stands in front of the mirror. Words are exchanged and the doctor leaves. More words are exchanged and the blonde slaps the brunette. And not only does the brunette have the bare wall behind her now, the cats have changed position as well.
Very interesting.
It's very interesting. It's not that interesting.
Okay. Here on the screen now, we're at a fashion show, I think, where he finally recognizes that one of the girls in the fashion show is someone that he knows.
So the plot is being advanced.
The plot is thickening.
Even as we're finding fault with all of the little mistakes that they made.
He's not drooling, but almost. Oh, we're back in the lab.
Okay, let me just... The biggest goof in the whole movie, aside from the idea itself, isn't this movie called The Brain That Wouldn't Die?
Yes.
Yeah. At the end of the movie, the title that comes up in the end credits is The Head That Wouldn't Die. So they actually forgot the name of the movie. That's a huge goof.
Well, they probably didn't want to change the end credits. It probably would have been more costly.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know what their thinking was, but it's a little bit... I think they thought that nobody would care at that point.
So this is the doctor's compound that's going into the pan, right?
Yeah, that's what's keeping her alive.
And she's talking, even though she has no vocal cords.
How do you think they really kept that actress's head alive in these scenes?
Well, it's pretty obvious that her body's under the table, right? And she's stuck
What?
in her...
Oh, what? Is that how they did it?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, it seems so simple when you explained it.
And she's got earmuffs on.
No, I like that. That's a good look. I think the whole look of this, somehow, I think it's one of the things that makes this movie memorable, is the production design. As simple and functional as it is, somehow we buy it and,
And we're captivated by her.
Yeah,
by her
right.
talking in her face.
And you remember it. And you know what is also very uncanny, to go back to Freud, unheimlich, as he would say, is when she laughs. When she has human emotions and behavior like a person with a body, it's there's something haunting about that.
But then again, she doesn't have any lungs, so I don't know how she
right.
can laugh.
Yeah.
Do you think her hair was burned off?
I hope not. Her hair was a great
Because
feature.
then she's got that turban on.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a great idea in terms of the production design because her hair softened her. It was very feminine and it made her seem, sort of desirable and sexy. And without her hair, she's still an attractive woman, but her face is strong looking and I don't know, it was hard. She's still beautiful, but it's just there's a hard quality to it. I don't know. There's a whole combination of things that I'm sure they didn't design or think about come together to make that image memorable.
So here I think Dr. Bill is going to pay a visit to an old classmate.
Oh, that's right.
And there she is.
This is a very strange scene because everybody is taking pictures from behind her. This was directed in such a way that they could get it all in one master shot, but it makes absolutely no sense unless they want pictures from behind her.
And apparently somebody called Sammy Petrillo is in this shot, and I think that's him on his knees, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is very interesting. Duke Mitchell and Sammy Petrillo in the 1950s were a kind of a roadshow version of Martin and Lewis. And as we all know, Martin and Lewis became huge, huge stars at Paramount. And Sammy Petrillo and Duke Mitchell mimicked them, especially Sammy Petrillo was definitely doing Jerry Lewis. And Petrillo started as a protege of Jerry Lewis, but when Lewis saw the one and only film that they made, which was called Bela Lugosi Meets a Brooklyn Gorilla, starring Bela Lugosi and Duke Mitchell and Sammy Petrillo, Lewis was pretty upset about it. And he tried to block its distribution and in Petrillo's career.
You know way too much about Sammy Petrillo.
I know. I have a lot of spare time.
Okay, now what you don't see is the left side of this woman's face is horribly deformed. Oh, I guess we can see it a little bit.
No, yeah, you're right. It is, but you don't see it until she reveals it.
It's she's revealing everything but that, it seems.
Yes, that's her defense mechanism. Yes. Redirecting attention.
So she's recognizing Dr. Bill as an old school chum.
Who apparently saved her from the guy who disfigured her.
I'm Bill Cortner.
And she doesn't really remember him. It must have been a long time ago, but she looks to be about 21 years old, so I don't know how long ago it could have been.
That would have been good for a prequel, maybe, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Or a completely different movie, better than this one. She has a kind of a Elizabeth Taylor quality to her, doesn't she?
And it seems like she's got the same makeup man as Jan.
That's right. By the way, this actress's name is Adele Lamont. She was born on August 7th, 1931 in New Jersey as Adele Cracciola. She was an actress. That was her profession. She's known for this movie, of course. I think it's probably the only feature that she was ever in. She did some television, a TV series called The Tall Man. She played Camila, a Mexican girl, and that was in 1960, the year after this. And also, the same year as this, she was in The Phil Silvers Show, and she played another Mexican girl. She doesn't look like a Mexican girl to me.
Not to me.
She looks Italian and a little bit like Elizabeth Taylor. Anyway, she died. She died on November 24th, 2005 in Pacific Palisades in California.
But they kept her head alive.
No, she just died.
Okay.
She was 74 years old and...
Well, she's showing us her face right now, and the scar that she received from an old boyfriend, maybe? I can't remember.
Yeah, somebody attacked her, and the doctor in their past saved her. But she was left with this pretty bad scar.
So Dr. Bill thinks he can fix this for her.
Yes. This, again, reminds me of Les Jeux Sans Visage. Funny. There must have been something in some vapor in the stratosphere of ideas that coalesced in 1959 around disfiguring beautiful girls.
So he's telling her that he's a brilliant surgeon.
I say that all the time to girls.
Yeah, it always works.
It doesn't work for me.
And that he and his father have a little laboratory up at the hillside.
Yeah, this is actually pretty plausible at this point. You know, he says his father is a plastic surgeon, a brilliant plastic surgeon. I think what's good about this second half, one of the things that's good about this is that the filmmakers, probably unconsciously or through imitation, are taking a page out of Alfred Hitchcock's recipe for suspense, because we, the audience, know that the doctor is up to no good and that he's just looking for a body for Jan. And yet the victims don't know that, and so we worry about them because we know we pity their ignorance in this situation, and also we pity their desperation that they would go with this guy. And I think in the same way, knowing that the monster in the door is being controlled by Jan. The doctor doesn't know that. None of the other characters know that. And we know that eventually that monster is going to break loose and wreak havoc.
Yes.
Again, that's information that the audience knows about danger that the characters on the screen do not. And I think it makes this last half suspenseful. And that plus the clock, the fact that this is all taking place.
And also the cigarette that Herb is holding. He always has a cigarette in his hand, and
we know he's eventually very shortly going to die of cancer.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know that in those days.
Well, I'm just waiting for it to, burn his hand or something.
Yes.
Or her leg.
Yeah, there's a suspense in knowing that cancer research is going to show that it's more dangerous than cool.
Only my father knows.
So he's talking about his old man again, and what a brilliant doctor he is.
Now, your theory is that a lot of this movie is about his relationship with his father, right?
Indeed.
How is that?
He's always having to prove himself to his father. And
he should show Jan in the pan how proud his father would be to see that.
He should show up with Jan in the pan on the doorstep,
right,
and then say, here it is. He's always touching women, too.
Yeah. I hate that in a man.
Touchy, yeah. Oh, now she's going to call her girlfriend and say, come with me. I'm going to go up to this guy's house, and he persuades her not to.
Now, these close-ups of our...
And now he's moved the cigarette to the other hand.
Oh, yeah, another goof. These close-ups are very un-Hitchcockian, because Hitchcock always felt like cinema will tell the audience what the actors are thinking, but this actor seems to think that he has to show it in his face all the time. If he's worried about something, he furrows his brow, and if he sees Jan's head decapitated in the front seat of his car, he has to make all kinds of facial contortions. Not cinematic acting.
No.
All he needed was a director to say, you know what, I'll do that for you.
And I'm quite sure they couldn't afford a bedroom scene here, so she's behind the screen.
Well, this is in the same basement of the hotel.
Right.
All of these sets were built in.
I'll leave it on the lamp.
And he still has that cigarette.
This is very clever, the way he...
Looks like the cigarette is bigger now.
You're focusing a lot on the,
way
on the
too
continuity
much.
goofs. You have to focus on something. Actually, this is a pretty effective scene because we know, again, that he's lying to her. She doesn't. And she actually put his name in the note, so he can't leave the note.
All right, back in the lab.
Back in the lab. And she's controlling him with her mind.
You're right.
Very much like...
I'm not really sure how
Dr.
she
Hill.
developed this skill.
It must have something to do with the fluid that's keeping her head alive.
I buy that.
You buy that? All right.
So she's trying to coax the beast to do her bidding.
A head without a body.
She's
Oh, I love this dialogue.
A head that should be in its grave.
I think that helps a lot of this morbid preoccupation with decapitation, mutilation, the desire to die.
the desire to die.
Yes, the desire for revenge. I think it makes this movie more than it is. I mean, it goes beyond its It's a humble look.
Okay, it's dinner time.
I love the way she goads him. He's really not very bright. He makes Dwight Fry look like a genius, this guy.
So he's only brought food for the beast.
Yeah, does she need to eat? I guess not, right?
Probably not.
She's being nourished by his compound and by the blood. So, and really she has no stomach, so she doesn't get hungry. What if she got a headache? Boy, that would be terrible.
You, a mere head in search of a body.
A mere head in search of a body.
Personal insults. He's reduced to that.
What are you talking about? You're nothing but a freak of life.
And a freak of
And a
death.
freak of death.
Yeah, that kind of pretentious dialogue, somehow it works in this very unreal setting. I mean, you know, it's hard to be Marlon Brando when you're talking to a
Well, what else are they going to
decapitated
talk
head.
about?
Yeah, I mean, it's the obvious subject at hand, but it's very theatrical, very gothic and overblown, despite its, contemporary realistic setting.
It was I who helped piece them together like a monstrous jigsaw puzzle.
Now, you know, this is a good time to talk about what was obviously the inspiration for making this movie in the first place, I assume, and that is the tremendous international success of the two Hammer Frankenstein movies, Curse of Frankenstein and Revenge of Frankenstein, both of which were in color, both of which had, outstanding actors, beautiful production design by Bernard Robinson, great scores. I mean, it had everything that this movie didn't have. But what this movie could replicate is the sensationalism, the exploitation, and the atmosphere of sort of morbid theatrical gothic horror. And I'm pretty sure that was their jumping off point, because never would they attempt something so horrendous as he's going to get his arm ripped off pretty soon, and he's going to smear the wall with blood.
It's quite gory for a film of its type.
It really is. It's quite gory, and it takes a lot of risks in that way. And the Hammer films, of course, did it in a completely different way. They had a 19th century detailed sort of semi-fairy tale world that made that a lot less sleazy and exploitational seeming.
Yeah, the Hammer films were more fantasy. Like you said, fairy tales. This one's a little bit too realistic for my taste.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, they couldn't afford period or much of anything. But, yeah, that's creepy. The mirthless laugh, from a disembodied head. Also, in Revenge of Frankenstein, the one that came out the year before this was made, there are actual scenes of brains being dropped into jars of fluid, and the blood coagulating and so on. So that was undoubtedly that gave them the go-ahead to do a scene like this, for example.
And what a scene it is.
And what a scene it is.
Yes. In an act of vengeance, Jan is using her newfound telepathy to coax the beast to attack Kurt.
Yes, this is what happened to Lionel Atwill's character off-screen in Son of Frankenstein when he was a child.
Of course, it's kind of Kurt's fault for leaving the hatch unlocked and turning his back to the door.
Yeah, he didn't think that through. No. Now this scene goes on and on. This scene was cut by Arkoff and Nicholson of AIP, knowing that their audience was made up primarily of kids in in cars with their families. They thought that this was probably in wretched poor taste.
Yeah, and probably shaved a good 10 minutes off the film.
Yeah, that's right. It takes him about 10 minutes to go up and down the walls, smearing them with blood.
And up into the living room.
With the other disembodied head.
And
I wonder if they used chocolate sauce for the black and white blood.
Well, you can actually see his hand under the coat.
Yeah, it's not that convincing, but still. It's the thought that counts, not the execution. Execution is for sissies.
She's pleased.
Yes. That's creepy. Now, don't you see, like, if she had that hair, it would soften her. She wouldn't seem so
You're right.
robotic. One of the things that Freud talks about in terms of the uncanny are robots, you know, things that look human and act like a human but aren't. You know, that's the familiar plus the unfamiliar, which equals the weird.
Okay, now he's going to go back downstairs.
Boy, you're right. This must have cut a great deal of the running
Oh,
time.
yeah.
Just him going.
Kurt
up
is really milking this.
yeah.
He's going for the Oscar here.
This is how they got him. They talked him into doing the part. You have a great death scene.
And his little nub of his hand is
Why did he
also
go?
bloody.
Why did he go upstairs?
I have no idea.
Does he have an idea?
And I think this is the end of Kurt.
It's about time.
And there he goes.
Dead. All right.
All right.
Now, again,
Just immediately
this
following.
is fairly Hitchcockian, because again, we have information that the characters do not have, and there's a certain amount of suspense. You know that something's gonna occur here. These two story threads are going to collide in an unpleasant way.
But thankfully, Dr. Bill has an ashtray here.
Yes, that's the only piece of furniture in his house, but he needs it. That's all. What else do you need in
Yeah,
1959?
she's sitting down in this chair, which should be coated in blood.
Yeah, that's right. As a matter of fact, there should be blood all over the floor here. Another goof.
Goes around killing girls. Now you've got to learn to trust people. People like me, really.
I'm sorry. I trust you.
He's not bad in these scenes. This is
I can't ask
a
what it
good
wasn't that.
good casting for this particular
It
actor.
is.
Playing the smiling sociopath, you know, who keeps convincing his potential victim how normal he is. Oh, there's some blood. Oh, this is not how I left the lab. This idiot.
Sleeping on
I'd
the
leave
job.
him for an hour with a disembodied head, and this is what he makes of it.
Yeah, what could have happened here? All right, so what are you going to do now? Okay. Now that the secret is out of the closet, so to speak. So we know all about Bill and Kurt.
Oh, I see. Yes, that was his secret, right?
That was
the
his,
symbol-
his hideous
And
secret.
I guess pulling his arm off was a sort of symbolic castration then,
Yeah, that's it.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
See, I'm starting
See,
to catch on to your
You're
theories.
with the program.
Yeah,
And he knows Jan is responsible because,
because she's a castrating bitch.
okay. So what to do now with Kurt? I mean, now that you got to hide the body, I guess, and
Is that hiding his latent homosexuality?
exactly.
See, I can do this.
And yeah, see, and there's
I'm writing a book.
and there's since there's no other rooms in the lab, I think he's just gonna get a sheet and cover him up.
Yeah, because you know what? There's some things you can't cover up.
Right.
There's some things in life that are just part of you. And him attempting to cover up his own guilty secret is,
well, at least Dr. Bill doesn't have to worry about fixing Kurt's hand anymore.
is he going to leave the shoes like that?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so now,
Is that symbolic
What
of
would-
anything?
yeah, what would you do next? I would
Walk back
by
and forth in front of the...
Now lock the door.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Well, there's some things you cannot hide. There's some things you can't lock away.
So if this happened to me, I
I'd
would
drink.
I would drink. I would do exactly what he's doing.
If this didn't happen to you, you would drink. I know you.
All right. So he's going to make a drink for himself and a Mickey for his girlfriend upstairs, Doris Powell.
Date rape.
Date rape. And I don't want to hear any Bill Cosby jokes out of this.
No.
No. Okay. I don't know how he's. It would be really good if they did that old routine, the comedy routine about moving the glasses
Yeah,
back
the
and
Abbott
forth.
and Costello thing.
Yeah, that
would
would have been wonderful.
that would have been a better movie, though. They actually, Abbott and Costello should have been in this. It would have been good, except this was the year Costello died, so and they broke
Oh.
up in 1956. So
Forgotten you.
Okay, so we are
Again, Hitchcockian. We know that it's drugs. She does not.
right, except
And-
there's no light in the glass, like
Right,
in
yeah.
Suspicion.
You know, because that was brilliant. This is just surfaceable.
Whatever it may be.
Drink up.
I'll drink to that.
She's really quite lovely, especially her
She is.
profile.
I don't know why he wants to cut off her head then. Well, it is scarred. And he is a perfectionist.
And his dad's not really a great plastic
Right.
surgeon.
Now, she had just, prior to this, she had told him that she doesn't drink a lot, but she seems to be doing pretty well. I don't know what this does. There's no numbers or anything.
I know, I'm not quite sure what it is, but it has something to do with the. I think it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, or in this case, Eddie Carmel.
Yes.
Eddie Carmel is going to play this hideous mutant that's going to come bursting through that door. He was an entertainer. He had gigantism and acromegaly, very much like Rondo Hatton. And so he got big, and he was known as the Jewish Giant. He had a height of 8 feet 9 inches.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty big. At the time of his death, which was at the age of 36, he'd shrunk a little bit because of curvature of the spine. And he had a little bit of scoliosis, meaning that he was becoming a hunchback. It's sad the way
It is
these
sad.
guys like this were exploited, but, you know, I mean,
But what did he do as an entertainer?
you got to make a living. Well, he was a giant. He was big.
Oh, he just stood there.
Yeah, he was.
He didn't sing, he didn't dance.
No.
Okay.
He was a good monster. He was an only child. He was raised in the Bronx. He was born in Tel Aviv, but he was raised in the Bronx. And he was nicknamed Eddie from his youth. His name was really Oded. And Carmel was his stage surname. And actually, Diane Arbus, the great photographer, made him famous in a photograph called Jewish Giant, taken at home with his parents in the Bronx, New York, in 1970, which was quite a bit longer after this. Anyway, his primary work was in carnival sideshows, and he appeared in Hubert's Museum in Times Square, and in some other movies, even before. In addition to this, he was in a movie called 50,000 BC Before Clothing in 1963. And he died August 14th, 1972 in New York City.
So while we're waiting for
His
him to
emergence.
appear,
Right.
we're getting, what was it? Doris Powell ready for the operating table, where I guess he's going to cut off her head.
What would be easier, cutting off her head and transplanting Jan's head to her, or just fixing the scar on her face?
Yeah, but he's in love with Jan Lepan.
I don't know. She's getting kind of uppity. And she doesn't even want this to occur.
No, she just wants to die.
Right. Listen, there was a guy named Dr. Robert White. Okay, follow me here.
Mm-hmm.
He did an experiment in the 1970s in which he transplanted a rhesus monkey's head onto another rhesus monkey's body, just like he's attempting to do here. His goal was to make it possible for humans to extend the lifespan of quadriplegics, because they die usually from multi-organ failure.
All right.
He really didn't want to give them a body that worked, but he just wanted to give them a body whose organs worked, because it's the immobility that eventually causes the organ failure. Anyway, he couldn't address the immobility issue, but he was looking at extending their lifespan through doing this. So, it could be possible. Also, wait a minute. There is a story that the U.S. government experimented in this area and actually kept a severed human head alive. Yes, and conscious.
What year was that?
It's a little vague, but they did it in a secret laboratory basement somewhere.
Not in Tarrytown, New York.
Maybe it was in this hotel. I don't know. Anyway, it probably isn't true, but that's what they say. And, you know, if something like that were remotely possible, they would do it, or it would happen someday.
All right, here we go. Seems like Jan, even though her mouth is taped up, has been able to instruct the monster to grab Dr. Bill.
Now listen, there is actually a book, and it's called If We Can Keep a Severed Head Alive, Disc Corporation and U.S. Patent 4666425. It's by a man named Chet Fleming. It's true. And it's about just that. It's about the fact that scientifically it can be done. Now, the author, I don't know if he's serious about this or not, he is an engineer, a lawyer, and a patent attorney. And he's not advocating exactly keeping a human head alive, but he's talking about analyzing and exploring the possible long-term social, legal, and ethical implications of doing that.
You just won't let that die, will you?
No. Why
Okay.
should I?
Well, because the monster has escaped from the closet, Jan has proven that she is nobody to be reckoned with. And now we're going to take a sizable chunk out of Dr. Bill's shoulder, I guess.
Yes, this was another part that was cut by AIP. By the way, the makeup on the monster and everything else was done by a man by the name of George Fiala. And he's mostly known for this movie, but he also did the makeup in Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, an even worse movie than this. A movie starring Soupy Sales from 1966 called Birds Do It. And another movie from 1968 called The Daring Game. This is an original piece of makeup, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. He couldn't get the eyes straight, but...
No. Oh, I can see his hair in back. You can
yes,
see
you can. Looks like the mask is coming a little bit undone.
Well, there's a lot of fire here.
Yeah.
Those things happen. This is a very interesting sort of existential ending because we don't know what happens to anybody.
Right, exactly. And we leave Jan with their final words. I told you to let me die.
Does she actually say that?
She does say that.
All right.
And the monster goes off. And
See, now it's called The Head That Wouldn't Die. They
right.
They even didn't get that right. Anyway, thank you, Tony, so much. I see this movie in a completely different way now.